Sorry,
Yes.
show of hands, how many people were in Naples? Okay, perfect. We're gonna kind of do a 2.0 from the Naples panel. So I'm gonna ask everyone to introduce itself, then I'm gonna introduce myself. Richard is a new addition, a great addition to the panel. So I'm gonna have you introduce yourself first, please, and tell us a little bit about your background, your family. I know you're a next generation as well.
Yeah,
please.
Thank you. So Richard Nespola, live in Washington, D.C. I'm a G2. We're an old telecom family. So my dad was part of the early teams at MCI, early teams at Sprint. And then he formed a telecom media and technology consultancy out of our basement, scaled it to about 600 people globally, sold to private equity in 98, IPO in 99, and a secondary in 2002. So watched that journey for him and our family go through that transition. And then married, 3 kids in Washington, D.C., 14-year-old daughter, 11-year-old son, 9-year-old daughter, and trying to navigate their life in this kind of context as long as soccer and travel sports allow us to do it. So yeah, I'm effectively managing our family holding company for the past 10 years called Working Lab Capital. We invest opportunistically up and down the capital structure. We started a specialty finance company a couple of years ago called BFY Capital. We started a real estate platform called Victura. So we do co-GP investing with other families. And then we're on our second SPAC. Our first SPAC was Freedom Acquisition Corp. We bought a company called Complete Solaria in 2023. We just bought SunPower out of bankruptcy, about $45 million buyout. Did that in September. And now we have another $175 million vehicle. So we're a bit more contrarian, like to zig when everyone else zags. So let's just think about things differently.
Thank you. Do you want to hand it down to?
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Blue Blakesley, and I'm the Senior Advisor for Emerging Markets and Philanthropy Partners at Save the Children, which is an international organization. It's 105 years old. It's in 115 countries. So I've been 35 years in the field. I came back to the international space during the pandemic because as I was sitting there by Zoom, meeting after meeting, I knew that my peers on the international side were going to do heavy lifting for kids coming out of the pandemic. And so that drew me back. The reason that I'm back is because there is a lot that is coming to the nonprofit sector and we have to pay attention. And if we're not careful and if we aren't innovating and if we aren't in community, we are going to time ourselves out. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done for kids. So things like social impact, things like paying attention to AI and innovation, those are all the things that Save the Children has done. And basically, I think it's all hands on deck right now.
My name is MJ Gottlieb, co-founder and CEO of Lucid App. We're a sober community of about 300,000 members. I got sober March 21st, 2012, and my business partner's family's been wiped out by addiction. And so we tried to think about how we can help 300 million people suffering from alcohol use disorder and 38% of adult Americans suffering from some sort of substance use disorder. There was a conversation that just happened around community. The opposite of addiction is connection. So we started a sober social network. A lot of people call us a sober Facebook. I don't really like that analogy because there's a compare and despair that happens in that. So the big social media platforms, which actually accelerates addiction, right? So we've kept it self-funded. We put about $5.5 million of our own money together. And then interestingly, to Consuelo on the whole last panel's point on community, we took about $1.2 million from our community, giving them an opportunity to become shareholders. And then we took another couple million in just angel money. And now, we're exploring moving forward. So I loved the conversation that just took place about community because that's everything.
Hi, everybody. My name is James Nazarov. We're based out of Brooklyn, New York, and my family invests into the fine art market where we work with emerging artists, helping to guide them, build their careers, and invest in them early on before the market has discovered them. And several years ago, we were thinking, what's a great stable industry that we can get into that we wouldn't lose sleep on? And we found the crypto market, and we've been having fun in that ever since. And that was a joke. So we'll keep this.
Thank you. And my name is Oscar Paez. I'm from Colombia. I'm third generation agro-industrial business. So you guys know that my weekend was kind of rough with this whole back and forth with tariffs. I now work with multi-generational families and single family offices, help them navigate complexities and conflict resolution, especially in these topics: entrepreneurship, impact investing, and the transition and handoff from the older generation to the now generation. So that's what I do, and very involved with things like the Family Business Network, which is one of the largest family business organizations, like a YPO for family businesses. So I'm around, and I kind of hear what's going on in many different families. You guys, what have you seen? What's the evolution of philanthropy? Right? I mean, the philanthropic roots have been, especially in the U.S., because of tax incentives, present for many years. How do you see the evolution into just giving to actually maybe making it another asset class? Who wants to start with that?
I think the one thing that I'll contribute is we are paying attention to the next generation leaders that are coming up. And we do know that there is this transfer of wealth that's happening. And in that, we know we have to show up differently. So therefore, we've got to look at all the ways that the next generation of leaders want to have a conversation with us. It's not the same. We're so used to doing sort of the same thing all the time. So that's a challenge for us in the sector that we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, I don't know about asset class. I mean, I think generally speaking, it comes more along the lines of alignment, right? And so trying to be a little bit forward thinking about the things that, afforded our family great fortune and great luck, and how you kind of play that forward, right? So it was, well, when it existed, there was an organization we were part of called Insight. We partnered with a bunch of venture capital firms and grad students across business, law, engineering, and life sciences. Supported about 70 portfolio companies a year, have about over 1,000 people in the alumni network. And it was basically a learning opportunity, right, to kind of pay it forward in the spirit of entrepreneurship with pro bono work, et cetera. And then also, too, just kind of dedicating a lot of my time to things that matter. So like Earth Echo International, it's founded by the grandson of Jacques Cousteau, Philippe Cousteau. So thinking about, water issues, clean water, access to clean water, things of that nature, really important for my kids, right, in the world that they're going to inherit. And so trying to create that alignment of time and capital and effort and energy, but also the doing part. I think it's very easy to write a check, right? And there are a lot more opportunities to do that. You can do now from a PRI perspective too. You can actually invest directly out of the foundation to things that are more private equity oriented as an asset class. That can be for, clean water distillation facilities or things of that nature. So there's a lot more options that are available. I think it's an educational part that's really important. But I think the alignment's the most important part. And then also getting, everyone else involved around the same ideas.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple things. First of all, so donor advised funds are great, which are philanthropic companies that are looking and sitting on capital, that they have their money sitting around in mutual funds or treasuries or whatever it is, and and social impact and philanthropy are so aligned, and so they're putting them into the whole discussion that we had about social impact was that there's this theory that the bottom line and the double bottom line are mutually exclusive, and that social impact companies, as an example, have no ability to make money, right? But then where's Tom's and where's all these amazing, and Bombas and all these amazing companies that are both returning great shareholder value and doing amazing things, right? So there's great philanthropic activity with donor advised funds where there's alignment between philanthropy and social impact. There's also, we have something called SAM, stands for Sobriety and Addiction Mentor, which is one of our only technologies that we actually charge for inside Lucid. And what's interesting is it's $20 a month, but a lot of people can't afford $20 a month that just blew up their lives to addiction. And so what we do is we ask for those who have the financial wherewithal to afford SAM to gift SAM scholarships to those people who can't. And so it's this beautiful, a friend of mine, Shelley Degelsky, started this thing called Pandemic of Love during COVID, where she matched families who didn't have the financial wherewithal during COVID to buy groceries with people who could. And then $100 million later, she was able to help a lot of people. And then she just kept going. So there's such great ability to help people when we have resources. And so I think there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity in philanthropy, because once we take and accumulate those resources, we have to do something with it to give back to those who aren't quite there yet.
I agree. And I think one of those resources is also knowledge. And it's a real gift to have it and to share it with others who don't. And I think of the breakout in venture that we just had, and everyone was lamenting the fact that a small number of funds get 80 or something% of all of the investment. And it's the same thing in the art world. If you're going to look at the type of artists that are having solo shows at museums, 80% of them are represented by the same handful of galleries. And the ones that are having the top auction records for sale are also represented by the same galleries. And the question is like, why is that happening? We know why that's happening. It's not always the product that's leading. It's the relationship. It's the trust that closes. And artists are not aware of that. So I have the ability to invest into this amazing asset class, take custody of my investment, get an asymmetrical return, and at the same time guide, nurture artists, build relationships with them so that they can continue to do this for themselves. And we all win. So it's an extremely fulfilling thing that I feel very lucky to be a part of.
Richard, in your perspective, right? You guys started with an operating business, then you guys turned into a single family office with multi-investments. Now, you talked about alignment within what's your individual purpose and how that changed from being a one-man show in between, like, we talked a little bit about this, and how does that affect it, and how do you see affecting the next generation?
Yeah, it's I hate the word steward. I think it sucks, right? I think it's just about being like a good, responsible parent and a good, responsible son or daughter, or wherever your relationships lie. And so, I don't know. I don't like fortune teller is probably a good way to think about it, right? Because you have to think, in decades. You have to think about like a whole bunch of macro issues, micro issues, family dynamics. It's really weird to think about like the potential of your own kids in the context of wealth, and like who could actually take some of this over or have to lay all of this off. And so there's a lot that's tied up to it. We don't have an operating business anymore, right? And I didn't go into the family business because I wanted to preserve my relationship with my father, because at the time it would have been very tumultuous and pretty bad for the two of us at that time. It took 15 years and an MBA in order to actually get to where I'm at in the family office. And so the short of it is like, it's really, really hard to think through those things without understanding the unintended consequences of some of those decisions, right? So the psychological impact of like not handing off a business to a son or a daughter, or to hand things over to management because you just don't trust them, or to actually hand that responsibility over to somebody else that is a family member, and then they're responsible for everyone else in the family. I mean, so, we've built a really good circle of other families around us that we learn from, and we share experiences with, good and bad, about their governance and their dynamics, and how like they literally kick families out of the family office, right? You don't want us to invest your money for you, then you can go have Goldman or Morgan Stanley or someone else do it. You're cut off. You can't do the family, trips anymore. And by the same token, there are others that want to pursue like equine therapy and aren't part of the family business, and they get just as much of a distribution out of that operating company as someone who's like in private equity. And so, like, thinking through these things, it's hard, right? And I think a lot of people in the wealth sphere don't talk about the pressure, right, of being a next gen, and like what it means for that next series of kids, and what it means for them to come from, you know, we're not a named family, right? Like our name's not on buildings or anything, but that's hard. It's really hard to carry that baggage around all the time because then you're always questioning, why is this person friends with me? Why is this person, what do they want access to? Right? Is there an ass that's embedded in something? And so like you become much more of a skeptic from an investment standpoint, from a relationship standpoint. So yeah, it's not easy. So the alignment parts, just to get back to the core of your question, sorry for going on a tangent, but like the alignment part's really about like, how do I not screw up? Right. But also I take the appropriate level of risk to advance my family to generate a return on what we have, right? And continue to be in a position of success, right? Because that shirt sleeves in 3 generations thing like haunts me, right? I'm a G2. I want to leave things better off for my kids and let them fuck it up, right? So, you know, at least the pressure's off of me. So anyway.
Thank you. James, you're also a second generation. We talked a little bit about this. Why don't you touch upon, and also, you know, we talked about the passion for art that you guys have, and how does that intersect in your role as an investor and as a philanthropist?
Intersects very well, perfectly, because I get to be hands-on with the artists as they start and benefit alongside them throughout their entire careers. So you know, a lot of the points that you said is you never know. Artists need support, so you never know if an artist is going to come up and talk to you about something. You know, you're kind of waiting for the ask, and we like it when they ask. We kind of wait for it. We want to support them. We don't want to think that there's a piece of art that I could afford to buy that I don't, and then this career that could have impacted history, that could have, you know, cataloged our culture and our story and told that for generations would now be diminished because I couldn't support it. So yeah, I think that people should ask, and we should be as generous as we can afford to be, and the right people will show us that they're grateful for it.
MJ, I asked you and I asked everybody in Naples the reason, and you already shared a little bit why you started this, but tell me a little bit more of why you started this and how it's impacting your life. But how do you see it impacting others in the future?
Yeah, I mean, the cost of addiction has surpassed $1.5 trillion, right? For everybody in this room, if something happened to a family member of yours in addiction prior to coming here, you wouldn't show up. This room would be empty, and that's just a reality. And you wouldn't be talking about money. We wouldn't be talking about anything. You'd be with your child or wife or husband or whatever it is. And that's just the reality, right? And nobody really cares about it until it happens to them. So, you know, as it relates to, you know, my story, I was once a hopeless drug addict, right? But if you look at the statistics, I'll say it again, 300 million people suffering from alcohol use disorder worldwide, and 38% of adult Americans suffering from some substance use disorder, and that's reported. The number's a lot greater than that. So the principles that are helping people in addiction is connection. We did start a sober dating app because I saw a lot of my friends dying from pressure to drink at the other side of the table, and they figured, all right, what the hell? The woman would say, oh my God, you don't drink. How can we have any fun? Just one drink. So he had a drink and he died, and this guy had a drink and he died, and she had a drink and she died. And that's just the reality. So we're building, and there was great discussions around AI too, right? So like for Sam, we brought an AI team and said, how can we walk people through like this virtual mentor, sober mentor, one day at a time? Because it's one thing to get sober, but it's another thing to stay sober. And so when you have this massive issue in this country and in this world, the best thing that I can do is to take this once hopeless addict and take those same things that helped me and fucking scale it. And so that's what we're doing, but we need help, because with that investment that we put, $5.5 million, that was just America. We can't even get past America right now. because just more and more people are struggling. So, so it's a massive issue, and we're trying to address it. You know, the only way that anything can be addressed at scale, and that's digital.
Luke, you know, you have a bigger perspective from a large organization, right? And you're interacting. You talked about emerging markets and different sectors that you guys are participating. How do you see AI and technology helping and affecting your efforts to fundraise, but also to allocate funds? Because you guys allocate as well, correct?
Right. So we have a social impact fund. We have 3 funds with that. It's 5 years old, and we have a team of about 12 that are focused on our social impact. We definitely look for innovation. Um, so a couple of things. With regards to AI, we actually have one of the very first studies out, and it's specific to safety on the internet using AI. And our goal is actually to raise money to be able to, make sure that there are safety nets for children when they're entering that space. A lot of what's happening right now, and you think about, Gaza, Ukraine, different circumstances where there's a lot of migration, children are not able to access normal education. And so in order to complement that, we've got to think of new ways, and AI is a part of that. So you see more children online, but we also have to make sure, because it's part of our mandate, is to make sure that they're safe while they're online. So that's a part of why we're focused on AI. Um, yeah.
Thank you. Now, for everyone, you guys, what are you hearing from, in your case, artists or other entrepreneurs within fields that are supporting addiction or mental health, and some of the things that you guys are doing? What are you seeing from other family offices and from other peers in each of your industries? If you
Okay. I can start. So I will say that in the nonprofit sector, we are not used to having the conversation with family offices, but we need to. And I believe that we are all better together if we're in community and we're talking about, our strengths. So that's why Save the Children is invested in participating in the family office ecosystem and community. We are also on the front line, so we believe that we can bring some of that conversation to the table that will help as we sort of determine how to have impact.
So I mean, in terms of the things that we're seeing, just like generally, I think a lot of the things that were covered today, right? So, AI and software kind of eating the world, workplace displacement, right? I mean, thinking generationally too, what are the jobs that are my kids going to have, right? Like the law, legal profession may be gone from a standpoint of AI training of models and looking at case law and everything else. So really trying to navigate, what that future is going to look like is a lot of what we've been talking about. Just, same way like AI and automation and what types of jobs are going to be available, who's doing what form of work. Are you in a situation like let them eat cake, right? This whole like dynamic between haves and have-nots and a whole bunch of economic disparity. Even going back to like a universal wage, as a lot of these jobs that we thought would be prevalent are disappearing. And like things in the real economy, right? Like your family is in kind of import export distribution of like commodities, right? Then you have a whole bunch of other issues related to climate change, right? And then insurance replacement and a whole bunch of these things. Like there are so many things that are outside of your locus control, right? And then planning for those areas, right? What are the contingencies from an investment perspective? What are the contingencies from a planning perspective? And the reality is, it's unfortunate to say, like all the best planning goes away when, I hate overusing the Mike Tyson phrase, like you get punched in the face, right? And so it's totally true, right? And so the reality is you can plan for the worst, and hope for the best, but hope's not a plan. And so you're constantly stuck in the cycle of like, what if? And so like you're just scenario plan a whole bunch of other stuff, and you hope you get it as much of it as you can right, and you accept the fact you can't control a lot of it. So that's we spent a lot of time talking and socializing about those issues.
Yeah, so as far as your question about other brands in the space, I mean, we're partnering with almost all of them right now. We brought 32 brands into mental health, better health, mental health, meditation, mindfulness, brain science, brain fitness, anxiety wearables, health wearables. We're bringing them all in to give them exposure, to give a better experience for Lucid members, to support them in their journey. So we're all inclusive when it comes to that. So anyone doing anything good in the sober and non-alcoholic beverage brands, we're partnering with all of them, right? All of them that are doing it for the right reasons. I'll just be super clear. I don't necessarily agree with mock whiskeys and stuff like that that has certain triggers within our community. With regard to your question about the family office, I think family offices are very important for me, right? Because we deal with a lot of angels. We are staying away from traditional venture only because we have a very vulnerable population, and traditional venture just wants to get in front of our audience and make money. And that can lead to people dying. And so the family offices are give people that kind of heart that Consuelo was talking about, where if they think that we're solving a significant pain point, we're not dealing with 8,700 LPs that need a certain percent, return. There's a little bit more heart involved and a little bit more directness. So I think that the family office space and things like this that Mark's creating and have created, I've been seeing him doing it since 6 years ago when he was just getting started. It's just amazing, what's happening then and what he's built now. And it's just such an important space to get into.
I guess in terms of my conversations with artists, it's they provide a lot of qualitative data that I normally do not get, because I know how many paintings I could buy every single month, every single year, but I don't really know what impact that has for the artist. And when you sit down with the artist, you find out that, the right patron at the right time, supporting them financially and emotionally and guiding them was instrumental in providing a pivot point that could have completely changed their careers. And for other family offices, I'm finding that there is a large appetite to be involved with investments in culture, investments into art. The pain point is like sort of knowing where to start. There's a lot of fear to that, but they are hungry to establish legacy. And they realized that there was, there would have been no Renaissance without the Medicis, without patrons there to support and to inspire. So they see this as a pathway to really make a difference and to have some degree of immortality, not just for their wealth, but for their family name.
You guys from the single family office world, I know it's hard to track the return on our regular qualitative approach. Is there anything you guys in your family see and use to measure that, as of how many lives do we impact, or anything in particular you guys have seen in your investments that are approaching that triple or double line approach?
So from one of the strategies we launched was a specialty finance company to back a bunch of consumer brands, primarily like food, beverage, beauty, pet, all better for you. And so it was a proxy. And so we said, if we could deploy capital in a smart way to help these brands scale and grow distribution and start to replace some other stuff from Kraft or Mondelez or Conagra on shelf, right, with potential for better health outcomes given their ingredient profiles and a lack of, just basically chemicals, if you will. That was a proxy, right? So the revenue growth and what they were able to achieve and brand awareness, et cetera. That was a proxy for us. I wouldn't say we're a pure impact investor at all. It was more of we saw a really good risk reward trade. We saw a way of doing some good. Also, it's a very tangible product. You can see it and experience and taste it and feel it and everything else. So that was the way that we kind of thought about it in that regard. That's kind of our story in that area. Anyone else?
James.
I feel like difficult to quantify the impact when it comes to art investing, but one thing that feels really great is there are artists that we've invested in that we have grown with that then introduce us to their artist friends who then come to us for support and want to be guided. And the fact that they have trust in coming to us makes me think that we are doing something right.
Yeah, so we want to wrap it up, but I also want to get people in. So make a few little announcements. One from Fed, if you get ready. But I want to get some people in here. So why don't you, if you think you're done or you want to do any last thoughts, part of us, what we're not going to do this time, just because of the extensions of time, is we're not going to do breakouts. I think the energy cadence is that we mingle. So I think that's what we're going to do, but we're going to I'm going to try to bring some people in so that we all sort of debrief one last time. So you want to maybe one last question or otherwise.
Any questions? You guys have any questions from the panel?
Or what do we want to do as a community in this space? You know, it's sort of a dedicated, whether it's we used to call them impact summits, impacts, this word that's been, you know.
Good word.
It's been, some people don't like it, right? I'm still, you know, we actually argued, right, in the VC breakout in Naples about it. I still want to support if we can do it. Well, we might have to call it something. We've been calling it optimizing philanthropy and NextGen. Dropping impact. Some people, I don't know, like, but I do remember our impact summit, Rich. We didn't record them then, but it's recorded in my mind.
Like everything else.
But I'd like to
think about what is impact. It's a company that's making an impact.
and then we had measurement of
How
it.
is that a 4-letter word?
Oh, I'm with you. I'm still on it, but just saying others aren't. But I think what you do with the intergenerational thing, that's huge.
No, it is. And now we're often seeing, and many more families are talking about capital, not from the just financial perspective, right? So we're talking about even as a family business or as a family office or even endowments, so on and so forth, they'll talk about their financial capital, their political capital, the reputational capital, the family capital per se, right? How much more of that work could go into leading into education, into what we call impact investing. So the multi-capital approach, I think it's a way to match up that triple bottom line that you talk about.
I was just going to say, though, one thing that needs to be looked at is the DNA of an impact entrepreneur and what they will do to make their company succeed. And that's not a conversation that's being had enough, because when you go through peaks and valleys in any product or brand's life cycle, if you're selling just widgets per se, you could fold the tent. We should have folded the tent 10 million times during COVID. And so a discussion needs to also happen about what an impact entrepreneur will do to get to the finish line.
Blue.
I just want to add, especially in the last week or so, there's been a lot going on in the nonprofit sector space. And I so appreciate the community here that you have philanthropy on the agenda. And I know there are a lot of philanthropists in the room. This is the time, and actually I was just talking to a leader in the nonprofit sector space where we are looking ahead and we know that we are going to need partnerships. Funding is changing in real time. So for example, USAID funds were held. That's a big deal in the nonprofit sector space. We are all trying to figure out how to pivot, how to do what we need to do in order to carry these services forward. So the partnerships and the conversations are deeply appreciated. And I just want to pass that on from the entire sector.
Maybe on that note, we're going to put a bow on this. If you weren't in, we're feeling the energy of the crowd. I think we're not going to do breakouts. We're just going to mingle. You met a lot of people here today. You hopefully a lot of common interests. I always said people collaborate best when they have both common interests and experiences. Part of that came from alumni experiences, but it could be whatever it is. Hopefully you get to know each other better and that the trust chains that are built from that and things, then it can be actions or transactions. But I've got, speaking of partnerships, I have a partnership with these two guys in the corner. I like them to come up because they've been supporting us, and they have been helpful to fund some drinks along the way. Mocktails. I didn't say what
task of speaking to you all and being in the way of you and drinks. So I'm going to keep it extremely brief. So my name is Fed Baradello. I'm the founder and CEO of Finalis. I'm joined here by my partner, Mike Weir. And I'll tell you a little bit about Finalis. So Finalis is building the largest investment banking platform in the world as a software business. And today we're proud to host 361 Firm and Mark Sainer, as well as a number of other who are in this audience today, as investment banks, investment banking boutiques on our platform. We have over 330 boutiques globally that are currently leveraging the Finalis regulatory and technology platform in order to power their business. And what that's enabled us to do is to amass a very meaningful volume of deal flow. There's over 2,000 active mandates on the Finalis platform today. That's about $90 billion of total aggregate deal volume. And if you do the math, that's about a $45 million average in terms of the opportunity. So this is full circle to what Todd was saying earlier today about the immense opportunities that exist in the lower middle market. And that's certainly something that we live and breathe every day as a business. In terms of opportunities to plug into our platform, I would just call out two key opportunities. One is there's many capital allocators in the room today. To the extent that you're looking for more deal flow, definitely get in touch with us. As I mentioned, there's over 2,000 active mandates sitting on the platform right now. And then the second is to the extent that you're thinking about needing to more effectively interface with the US capital markets, leveraging a full service broker dealer. This is what we've built. This is our know-how and our expertise as a business. So definitely get in touch with us. We can help get you plugged in so that you can earn success fees for hard-earned introductions and the work that you all are doing in the capital markets.
Could I add a few things on that?
Yes.
It's because I've experienced broker dealers in the past, probably 3, and just it's actually delight. You have so many people around the world, different time zones. You make things seamless, which is great. And so if you want something done within 24 hours, a document's reviewed and approved, and that's not always the case with other broker dealers. And the other thing is, if you want to become a banker, a lot of people, you see a deal, and you got to watch it. If you get in the middle of a deal and you get paid on a success fee, you could ruin that deal, by the way. That could be rescinded. But it's not that hard. It's not like a dental root canal to get the test done. And you don't have to, your OBAs, your outside business activities, can be a broad stroke, so we don't have to supervise you per se. It's doable, and then you can just have that things will come up. What happens is so many times you should have done it, but you didn't have your license. So we have through 361 and or directly through Finalis, we make it less painful, more like a teeth cleaning than a root canal.
The other thing I'd mention is that the platform has been, and this is all thanks to the talented bankers that we have on the platform, has been incredibly productive. Over the last 4 years since the platform was launched, we've closed over $20 billion in total aggregate deal volume on the platform. And that's only going to continue to grow as we continue to attract top quality boutique investment banks and bankers on board. So really delighted to be here. Hope everybody enjoys their drinks, which we were happy to sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Tomorrow morning, if you still have energy, Satai, we do our briefing, 10 a.m. It's on the beach side, right by the convention center. Let me know. You can stop by. We'll be. I've got another group of people that couldn't be here today. So Stephen Burke will do his briefing, and next week we're gonna dedicate an entire hour to our Survey 18. Bill,
come join our 361 Firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.